So, welcome once again to this series of operating system. As of now, we have seen the basics of operating system, different types of operating system, and then we looked in detail aspects of the Linux operating system. In the last session, we saw some of the useful Linux commands from the different sections. So, now we will see another interesting topic in the Linux, that is how one can write the scripts using the different commands, so that one can automate certain tasks. So, let us start. So, in this session we will try to cover different aspects of the shell scripting, starting from introduction to shell scripting. Then we will try to see the basic structure of shell scripting. Then we will try to understand variables and how to deal with the input output from the users. Then touch upon some of the conditional statements like if else, then loops in cells, then like for loops, while loops. Then we will try to see how we can define functions in shell scripts, followed by one real life use case where we will try to write the automation script for it. So, let us start with the introduction to shell scripting. Basically, what exactly the shell is? Shell, as of now we have seen, the shell provides an interface for the user to give the commands to the kernel. Now, what exactly the shell scripting means? Basically, a shell script is nothing but a file containing series of commands that are executed by the shell. And as we have seen, that shell is nothing but a command interpreter in Linux, right? And there are like different use cases for of this writing the shell scripts, as like if we want to automate some of the repetitive tasks, then we can use the shell scripts. Okay, then there are so many scripts, especially from the admin perspective. They keep on running some scripts to monitor the system, batch processing of the system, as well as like if you want to manipulate the data, take the backups. So, there are like various situations where we required to have the shell, like shell scripts, where in a single go we write the series of commands. So, just to short about it, like what exactly the shell script, it is nothing but a file which is having the series of commands. So, as of now we have seen in the last session that there are different shells in Linux for the different flavors it provides. Okay. So, like bash shell, ss shell, zs shell, ksh shell, c shell, c shell, tcs shell, dash, fish. There are so many like cells. So, as per our requirement and as per our convenience, one can use the corresponding cell. So, there are different properties of the cells, like user friendliness, scripting power, customization power, performance, portability, and so. So, in this particular session we will be dealing with bash shell, which is the most common shell in the Linux. We will focus on bash shell for this session. So, at very first we will try to see how one can write the scripts and what are the necessary things he should keep in his mind to write the write or create a script. So, for that we can use any editors like text editors, like command line editor, or the GUI editors, anyone we can use. So, here just for the example we are using the Vim editor, okay, like command based editor. Then create a file with name hello.sh, and just focus on this. Here we are trying to provide the extension as a sh. So, this is one straightforward understanding that okay, this is the shell script file. Okay. So, once you open that particular file with the Vim text editor, then try to put some content into that particular file, like put an echo. Echo is basically the command, okay, to print something on the terminal. If we want to print something from that particular cell, this is the command which comes into play, right. So here we are telling that, okay, just print this hello world. So and just save this particular file with hello.sh. Now one another important thing you need to understand here, okay, adding the cbang. What is means by cbang? You just need to put these keywords followed by the name of the cell. Here we are telling that, okay, I want to use bash cell. If one wants to use another cell, okay, like if you want to use the CSH cell, then one can replace that with as like hash dollar slash bin slash CSH, something like that. So the very first line is actually tells the type of cell which you are using, and then as per the type of the cell, following commands represent the syntax, or as per the different cells, there is little bit change in the syntax. So in case of the bash, the whatever the commands we will be following from this onwards, we will be following the syntax of the bash shell. So here in this very simple script, we are declaring that, okay, we want to use the bash script, okay, and from that I just need to print this word hello world on the terminal. So just save this particular file, okay, and just try to run it. So before running it, make sure that you made this particular file executable. So in the last session we have seen that there are different ways if one can create the file, then how that particular file can be given access of read, write, execute. There are different permission types which we have already seen, right. So here if I want to execute this particular script, then I need to provide or pass on the executable permission for this hello.sh scripts. So it means that the very first stage is to create the file, then provide the interpreter, okay, which interpreter, like here in this particular case the bash interpreter we are going to use, okay. Then make that particular script executable with the help of like a chmod command which we have already seen, and then that is ready to execute. Just then finally, like how one can execute it. So if this is an executable, okay, exe, then one can execute it directly by running that particular binary. Like if there is that you open the terminal, as like for example the same program, first you create a file which contains this particular data, okay. Now I just created this particular file, and if I want to see, this is the content of my file, right. So I added the interpreter shebang along followed by interpreter, then the commands which I want to put. Now just save that particular file and then change the permission. You can observe that now this hello.sh has got the executable permission, right. Then just run this file binary. When you run this particular file, so whatever the command which has been written, so this command starts getting executed one by one, right. So this very first command, when it executes, then it tells to that interpreter, okay, I want to use the bash, okay. Then just run this particular command echo and put whatever the content here in the double quote, just print that on the terminal. So you can see that this is the output this particular script has printed. So, in this particular way one can create a scripts, okay, he can put the data or what commands, series of commands into that particular script, and this way he can execute that script. Got it? Let us take another example where we will be like executing the script itself. Let us take example of this script where we are going to print the date, current date. So, for that particular case with the echo command we are printing this is the normal message, and this is the once again within that particular echo command we are trying to execute the command. So, date is actually the command in Linux which gives the date, current date, right. So, whenever this any like a keyword followed with this, okay, dollar sign, and within this particular bracket, it means that we need interpreter understand that okay, now I want to execute that particular command. So, there are different use cases of this particular dollar sign. We will try to see those different use cases as we proceed further. So, as of now we just need to understand here that okay, this particular script will when it executes, okay, it prints the date. Just take an example. The same script if I want to execute, just create the file with name .date.sh, and you can see this is the content of that particular file, and when I execute this particular executable or this particular file, then I get the output like this. So, date is this much data anyway we have printed or we have provided in this particular file. So, now this particular command gives this or prints this remaining part like from this to this. So, like it means that I can write different commands in the shell script. Those commands get executed one by one sequentially. So, first it like the echo command executed, within that particular echo command there is another command which gets executable and executes, and we get the respective output on the terminal, right. Now, take another example. Within the scripts we can also do some like mathematical operations. Here take an example, I want to add the two numbers, okay. Here this is the syntax, okay. So, after this particular sign dollar sign and within the bracket, so now it considers consider that I want this is like my arithmetic operations I need to perform, and here I want to do the addition of these two numbers, right. So, my expected output should be something like 5 plus 2 is equal to 7. So, when I execute this particular script, okay, you can just take an example same, okay, you create a script with add.sh, and this add.sh add the content as like here, right, and when you run that script you get the output something like this, right. So, it means that we can do some operations as well within the script by the different means. So, the shell script provides those kinds of flexibility to the user, right. So, now let us talk about like another concepts, okay, those that is like variables and input outputs, how one can deal with the input outputs as well as with the variables in the shell script. Basically, what are exactly variables in generic sense, right. So, variable is nothing but a like entity which stores the information like numbers or strings which can be used later on in that particular program or in the script. So, this concept if one has like understanding of the other programming models like a C, Python and those, they know that like what is basically use of variables in the programming languages, right. So, now let us see in case of the shell scripting how one can declare the variables and use the values of those variables. Just take an example of this script, very simple script, okay, where I declare a variable, okay, and assign some string to this. Now, here in this first line I declare variable, okay, and assign that some value to that variable, and then I use this variable in the latter commands. So, whenever this particular command will execute, so it is expected that this variable will replace the value of this name with the whatever the assigned value to that particular variable is there. So, let us when we run this particular scripts, it looks like that. Okay. So, let us say this is the scripts, okay, the same script which has been mentioned. So, when I run this particular scripts, you can observe that it has provided this output, declare a variable name, and this was like Peter was the value of that variable. So, when it executed, after followed by this particular word hello, this name has been replaced with the value of that variable, and accordingly it has printed the result. So, in this particular way one can use the variables in the scripting. So, just declare the variable, okay, assign the values. So, that value may be the string or may be the numbers, and then use that particular variable in the scripts. Okay. Another take an example, like we can also assign the output of some commands to the variables as well. So, just take an example here. Okay. This is one variable current name we have used in this script, okay, and we are passing the output of this command itself. So, we are like this is just a format, okay, of the date command where we want the time only. So, do not print the dates, I just want the time. Okay. So, one particular command date or maybe other commands can have the different formats. Okay. So, here we are passing this particular specific parameter to this date command, where it specifically we tells that okay, I want the time, okay, current time. So, when this particular command is executed, whatever the output of this particular command, okay, output of this command is assigned to this variable, right. Now, when I run this particular command and use this variable, okay, so whatever the output of this command was generated, that will be printed. So, just take an example here. The same program I wrote in the substitute.sh, okay, the same command, okay, and when I try to run this particular script, you can see that it has printed the time. So, it means that we can pass the output of some commands to the variables, and then we can use that variable further in the scripts. So, this is another example or instance of using the variables. So, when we deal on the any Linux system, so there are so many inherent variables set up by the operating system in that particular cell for that particular instance for that particular user, right. So, if I want to see all the variables which has been set into my environment in that particular cell, then I can use the commands like env. So, if you just open the terminal and put the command env, okay, you will get the list of all the variables which has been set into that particular terminal, because as we have seen Linux is nothing but Linux operates on everything and consider it everything as a file. So, executing the file. So, while dealing with the files, there are so many variables are set, okay, and within your whenever you open the terminal, by default there are so many variables, and if you want to see those variables, you can write the command as a env, you will get the list of all variables. So, the list is very long, I just tentatively put the shorts screenshot of this particular variables here, whatever has been shown, right. So, this is the one way to see the variables which has been declared in that particular cell, right. So, now there is another way to declaring the cell as well, right. So, with the export command, right. So, what is the use of export command and what is the difference between them, we will try to see. But here I want to say that initially we had directly declared this variable, one variable, and we had assigned the value. If we just put an export this keyword in front of that particular value, in that particular case as well the variable gets set. So, the just same program if we try to run, so we will get the respective output. So, the same program we export it and assign the value of for this variable as this Rakesh. Okay. Then if I just print that particular variable, and you can see that I get the result, right. We are just initially just setting the variable, then in the second step we are just printing the name, right. So, now as I was mentioning, okay, just take an example, what is the difference between the declaring variable directly and putting the export this keyword in front of that variable. So, what is the basic difference? So, if I try to run that particular case, you can observe that within the same script there is no difference. Just take an example here. So, the same script if I run, declare the value, okay, directly and print it, you get the result, right. Rakesh name has been printed. So, now once again set another variable with this value, okay, and if just print, then you get the results. So, remember that here I am running everything within one cell, and there is with respect to this one execution there is one associated process, right. So, basically what is difference between these two, and in which scenario one can use this and this. So, let us try to understand that. Okay. So, whenever we directly declare a variable, basically that variable is set in the current cell session only, but that variable will not be available for the processes or the child processes from that particular cell. If another process has been spawned, or like a child process has been spawned, that particular variable will not be available to the child process. Many times I am stating that, okay, one file may have the commands or may execute the another files. How we can do that? I will try to show the example of that. But within one cell we can call another, we can run the another script as well. So, there is one cell script, we can run another cell script from that script. So, if we declare a variable straightforward in this way, this particular variable will not be available for the child process. But if I declare the variable like this, right, with the export command, it means that this particular value of the variable will be available for the child process as well, right. So, just take an example here, okay, just declare the two variables same, name 1, assign the value of this, then name 2 with the export, right. And as I was mentioning, let us say there is another script which I am calling from this script, right. This is also, let us say, the same bash script is there and I am just calling that. So, just take an example here. So, there are like there is this child script as well as, let us say, this variable 4.ss script is there, and this is the content of variable 4.ss script, right. So, now you can see that within this particular script itself, first time I declare the variable, then with the export I declare the variable, and I have called another script, this script from this script, right. So, it means that this is the parent script, parent process, we can say that, or maybe the script, and within that particular script when I try to run this script, then this becomes like this is the parent process, and within that particular script if I am writing like asking that, then it is the child process, right. So, when I try to see the contents of this child process, I am just echoing those names, right. So now when I run this variable dot 4ss scripts, so you can see that though in the child script I have echoed both the names, name 1 and name 2, then you can see that there is no output for name variable, but there is output for name 2 variable. There is no output for name 1 variable, but there is output for name 2 variable. So it means that what has happened here, so the thing which we had used with the like the variables which has been declared with export, those has been available for the child process. I hope you understood the concepts. Okay. So this is a generic way of declaring the variables in the scripts. Now let us say another example where if I have set the variables and I want to unset that particular variable, or if I let us say I have assigned some values to this variable, but now I want to remove that assignment, then there is a command called as the unset you can use. So how one can use that in the script? Just let us say you set the variable as Rakesh, okay, and in the first stage you just echo it and then unset and then try to see the output. So this is the script for it, right? So you first set the variable name, okay, and assign some values, okay, then just see the output. Here you can see that with this corresponding I got the output. Now I unset the same variable, here I unset, right. So now once again if I echo it, there is nothing printed. So in this particular way I can unset the variables. So whatever the value has been assigned, with the unset command I can remove that value from that particular variable, right. Then if I want to modify the variables, example I want to add the path. So this is a very generic and very useful aspects while working on like systems like HPC, where from the user perspective one want to install an application and he wants to use that application. So whenever one install the application, so for with respect to that application there are some binaries created, some library files are created, some header files are created. So if you want to use those files and make it available into his own environment, so there are like different variables by default system uses for those, like just take an example of a path variable. So path is one of the standard variable in the Linux, which is basically used to set the paths for the different binaries. We have seen that, okay, there are different binaries present in the different directories in the Linux operating system. So here you can see that I am telling that, okay, I want here by default the system uses the binaries from the sbin directory, like system binaries, then the user binaries, okay, different locations, all the binaries has been set. And let us say if I want to add the path of one of my applications binary as well. So just consider that, okay, in this particular desktop directory, okay, I have some binaries. Now I want to add a path of those binaries in this list. So this list, okay, so that I will make use of those binaries, okay. So just set that particular variable or modify that variable, or maybe just append or prepend our user defined variables. So in that particular case you can use command something like this. So export path and provide the path from user perspective whatever you want, right, and followed by dot sign like a signature, like this symbol, okay, and then whatever the earlier paths were there you just add after this particular path. So in this particular way we are just updating the path, okay, or modifying the path, where we are keeping the earlier whatever the paths were there, and additionally we are trying to add this path as well. So now when I try to see the contents of this particular variable, then you can see that now it has printed or added this part as well. So while dealing with like different applications on the HPC system, there are like different variables likewise you need to modify as per your requirement. So, very standard methods like as I had mentioned, path variable used for the binary paths. Okay. Then there is like standard variable library path, LD library path, one need to set it for the libraries of that application. Then for the header files, he can use the include path which includes the headers. So likewise, there are the different variables one which you can play with them. But always remember that if you are dealing with the system environment, do it very cautiously, because if you somehow override the path, maybe that particular system in that particular cell may not work. Okay. So, while dealing with the system or the by default path, do it very carefully, right. So, then let's talk about the different user inputs. So, if I want to check or take the some inputs from the user, how I can do that. So, in case of the shell scripting, you can use the command called as the read for taking the input from the like a prompt of the user. You can prompt the user for the input using this read command. Let us take an example. If I want to, in the same last script which you had seen, instead of setting the variable within the script itself, I ask the user to enter the like name and I will print it. So, in that particular case, with the echo command I am just printing this message on the terminal, and with the read command, okay, I am expecting that, telling that user, okay, just give me some name which I can store that value into this variable, and then I will just print that. So, just take an example. You can see that this is the script, okay, where we are asking the user that enter the name of the user, then we are waiting that whatever the input user will be giving, that will be stored in this particular name variable. So, when I try to execute that particular script, okay, then you can observe that once this particular command is executed, now the prompt is waiting for user to enter some value. So, I just enter this particular sham value, right. So, now this particular sham value will be assigned to this variable, okay, and with the read command, this variable will set for this value, and for the next command, this name or this variable will print the value. So, likewise, I can take the input from the user and perform some of the operation. Let us take another example where we perform the arithmetic operation, where I am just asking the user, okay, here just enter the two numbers, okay, and I will take those numbers in number 1 and number 2 and do some mathematical operations on it. As I had mentioned, by this way we can do some mathematical operations. Here we are adding the number, okay, and we are just printing the sum of those two numbers. So, here you can see that this is the script, okay, the same script. If I run this particular script, okay, then here for this command, when it executes, it will print this particular message and it will be waiting for the two numbers. So, when we try to enter these numbers, so these numbers will be assigned to these two variables, okay, and by using these two num1 and num2, this third operation will be carried out and will be printed the sum. So, likewise, one can take the input from the user and do some processing on that particular variables or those particular inputs by putting those things in the variables and something. So, in this way we can deal with the variables as well as like taking the inputs from the users and printing like doing the operation and printing it on the terminals or giving the results to users and so on. Thank you.